So Professor Macharia will be joining us. He's a political historian, Macharia Munene rather. He'll be joining us. He's a political historian. We'll be talking about Kenya's political turmoil. Where did the government lose its grip? Its grip. Where did the government lose its grip? What is it that we are seeing? Because, look, we are not debating whether the government has lost its grip. They will be joined by a PS at 9 a.m. who will be telling us the work that they are doing. But overall, many people, even from the public participation on what we're telling the government is, come on, guys, these are the things that you should be working on. There's crisis after crisis. The matter of education goes to court. It's stopped by the courts. The president says, let's implement the work of a working party on education reforms. He hands it over to the Ministry of Education. Ministry of Education, a year later, many of the things that they were supposed to have done, including starting conversations on recategorization of schools, they have not happened. Safety of our boarding schools has not been addressed adequately. And all those things. The issue of funding, post-secondary education funding, becomes such a big issue. It goes back to the president's desk. He's like, okay, so then let me form various teams to look at this matter, so that they can come and advise us what we can do. He forms a task force, various, they are called, what are they called, those things that they're working on?
Working party?
No.
What?
Streams, work streams. Various work streams, but the entirety of this one giant workforce is 129 members, or is it 39 members? I
don't recall the exact number, but they're over 100.
They were close to 150. Okay. All of them looking at something that should have been worked on by the Ministry of Education over the past 1 year.
Yes. And divisions within the Ministry of Education who actually specialize in such things.
Yes.
Yes.
So education issues, crisis, clear. That's why the president is forming task force after task force. It's because there's an issue. Health, we are seeing the rollout of SHA. There are very many challenges. There's an issue. All right? Very soon you will see the president coming in and forming a task force to look at this rollout and the communication and very many other things. All right? How do we go about this? The task force will be formed, likely by the president, because health issues. All right? Our basic education, secondary, primary to secondary, there are issues. Teachers, teacher recruitment, Nini. We have issues. What is it? Our journey towards industrialization. If you talk about, for example, the national government and the counties have been building what they call the county aggregation industrial parks that are supposed to be supporting mainly the agriculture sector in terms of the value addition, small businesses that come up in value addition that help to offtake the produce in agriculture and then to market them nicely. Have those types been in operation?
As they say, no.
No. What are we doing in our leather value chain? Those value chains that were identified by the government. So there are so many things that are balls in the air for the government. Rigathi Gachagua is currently the issue at hand. You ask yourself.
Not just the issue, the paramount issue in the country at the moment.
Yes. Yes. It is because of Rigathi Gachagua that we have not been able to deliver. Rigathi Gachagua himself, speaking yesterday, as the sitting deputy president, says the economy of Kenya was working when Kibaki was president. That's when he made his wealth.
And he's the deputy president.
He's the deputy president.
So inadvertently he has told us that the economy is not working under this administration where I'm deputy president.
Yes. And even in the previous one, where I was a member of parliament, it was not working.
All right.
Kenya, Kenya, the
very same Kenya.
Professor Macharia Munene is our guest. He's a political historian. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing?
So far, so good.
Yeah, so far, so good.
So good, yes.
Good to see you here.
With you, yeah.
Good to see you here. Happy to have you here. That's the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Yes.
How does it feel? Comfortable?
I have heard about the Situation Room.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Here you are.
Yes.
Here you are. We've longed to have you here.
Thank you very much.
We are glad to have you here. Siti, why don't you give Prof the day's proverb? So, Prof, this is what happens.
Yes.
Siti goes to an African country for a week, brings us proverbs from that country, and every day he has a different proverb. Now the job of our guest is to listen to CT's proverb and give us his interpretation of it. This week, CT, you are in?
We're in the kingdom of Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You told us the name of the king.
Yes, it's Mohammed VI.
Okay.
But this is a dynasty that has existed since the 8th century.
Where?
They're genuinely ancient.
Yes.
Yes. And this monarchy is not one of these ceremonial monarchies. It has genuine power. The monarch is actually head of many things. Commander of the faithful, commander of the Moroccan armed forces, head of the Supreme Council of the Judiciary. So now that tells you that this particular monarch is in charge, full charge of the country. It's like you almost can't twitch without his say.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, the proverb. If he increases the number of his friends, he will remain with none.
If he increases the number of his friends, he will remain with none.
Yes.
Prof, what's your interpretation?
Should be careful who he picks as friends. They'll be busy undermining him, and it's impossible to have everybody as a friend. Just some limited people. Even the limited ones, you need to watch them out. They could be just sycophants.
Watch who you pick as a friend.
Yes.
I'm sure Rigathi Gachagua will agree.
Yes. If only he had listened before.
If only he had listened. So, Prof,
yes.
As you were coming in the previous hour, we were asking ourselves, number one, this is a big day. You know, everybody's saying ready for Tuesday.
Yes.
Because for the first time, you're going to see the Constitution in operation when it comes to the office of the Deputy President, the presidency, basically.
Yeah.
We have seen impeachments of governors and deputy governors. Now we are seeing impeachment in the presidency. And it happens in the National Assembly, and then it moves to the Senate again, just like in the county governments. In this particular case, the MP who's leading this, MP Mutuse, has prepared a proper dossier of the grounds for impeachment of the Deputy President. The Deputy President responded to this yesterday, and he is going to appear in Parliament today. And members of Parliament will be discussing this today. What we were asking ourselves earlier, do you think all the 349 members of the National Assembly have read page to page of the impeachment motion with all the grounds, with all the supporting affidavits? They have internalized it, and that they will be sitting in that Parliament today discussing something that they know?
The answer is no.
Why?
They usually don't read. And later on they tell us they were not even aware of what they were doing. so from their own mouths. So a few of them have read. We'll give them that credit. But most of them have not read. And if they've read, they just perused, and they have not internalized. And if they have not internalized, they are not in a position to make intelligent decisions. And that now it turns out that the way these MPs make their decisions is based on four factors. One is general ignorance, because they don't pay attention. Remember when they were passing a finance bill?
Yes.
One of them told us that he was asleep. Then he had his name mentioned, and he said yes. so now they give him credit.
Just woke up and say yes.
Yes. So there are many who do that. Two, there are some who genuinely believe what they are doing. They are conscious. They are not very many, but they are there. Three, there are those who are bribed. If they get 2 million, 200,000, or 10,000 in an envelope in a toilet or whatever, they have been bribed. And then they come later and tell us that they were bribed. 4, they are scared.
What are they scared of?
Fear. That if they don't vote the way they are told, some people might follow them. And there are various ways of
being followed.
Being followed.
Yes.
And some of them have said that actually they've received some phone calls, or they have been told, let me see who will try. So fear is a major factor in the decision. So when all those factors are put into operation, then you can really doubt the competence of the parliament to make decisions. If it is based on fear, on bribery, and ignorance, and a little bit of conscience. So the answer to your question is no.
Aye. So when did the country start beating us? Because then if you're getting to a point where we are discussing a serious matter such as this one,
Yes.
a constitutional matter,
Yes.
of removing the head of the executive or the deputy head of the executive, and it will not be taken seriously. People will not have internalized the grounds. People are not going to debate in parliament on merit. They'll be debating on, political sway. Where does that leave us?
The country is in trouble. So whom did we put in parliament? And why? Not just parliament, the whole leadership is messed up, such that you come to a point where we feel, or the country feels, we do not have a country. And the leadership has surrendered the sovereignty of the country, the interest of the country, to some foreign entities whom we had no role in identifying. Well, those entities are called IMF or World Bank, or some friends in United Arab Emirates, or in India, or some other place. But the impression created is that these foreign entities control or somehow own the country. If that is the case, then Kenyans have lost the country.
What?
And if that is the case, then the question go back to whom did Kenyans entrust to protect their interest? And those entrusted people, why are they not entrusted anymore? So it's a very difficult question for Kenya to answer themselves what's going on. So what we are seeing now is shenanigans, trying to play games here and there.
It's basically just like a distraction.
Yeah, it is diversion.
It's a diversion from the real issues.
Yes.
And the real issues are just much, much more serious
They're
than
serious.
this.
They're really serious. Because the independence of the country is an issue at present.
The sovereignty of a country
Sovereignty
is paramount.
Do you agree with Prof's view, City?
Prof has this thing right to a T. Because he presents that presupposition very clearly. He says, look, if we say that this is so, then, and that is the case, then this is where we are. And if you look at the details, do we have money from IMF? Yes. Do we have structural adjustments back in the country? Yes. Do we have deals that are of national importance and national import? And we keep reading that some of them are deals that have been made in the Middle East. The answer is yes. Do we have deals that are being made with individuals who come from the subcontinent of India? The answer is yes. Do we have deals that are being made by certain telecommunication companies that emanate from the US? The answer is yes. The problem with all these things is that you hear of the deal, but what accompanies it next is the murky nature of it. There's nothing clear about it. There are more questions than there are answers. And the questions persist, and what also persists is that the absence of a clear answer also persists. So, what option do you have in drawing to a conclusion that something untoward has taken place and that our sovereignty is actually at stake here? You have to fear. Why you have to fear is because when we've had businesses or when we've had understandings with nations whom we say are friendly nations, not only do you know of the contract, not only do you know of the details, but everything that has to do with it, you know, and you're told. And you can follow it to its conclusion. If, for instance, one hears that the Treasury the Ministry of Finance doesn't move until IMF tells them to move. You'll say, no, that is not true. Say, okay, but unfortunately, the professor is a professor of history here. When we had structural adjustment programs in the 1990s, one will remember very clearly that what we are seeing now is what we saw then. So the conclusion isn't out of thin air. There's a very clear reference point. This idea of austerity, this idea of ensuring that you tax people to smithereens, okay? And yet, the austerity philosophy and thinking has been debunked. Even the research around it has been debunked by people who understand these things better. It doesn't work. It's not complicated. It does not work. It's as simple as that. Yes. And yet, that is what some people are insisting. And it's what we're doing. What led to the protests that we had with the finance bill. Because that was the austerity measures being operationalized.
This is what we are seeing.
Yes, that's what we're seeing.
And the pushback with the, delayed meetings with further meetings with the IMF was on the same.
Yes.
That, you still need to raise revenue. Yes. Fine, your sovereign said that they don't want to raise, they were opposed to the proposal to raise an extra 349 billion shillings, but you have to raise. You have to find ways of raising this money. And that's like the catch-22 that we found ourselves in now. The National Treasury being told, so what discussion are we having with you? If we can't come to a meeting where you'll tell us you are not able to raise money. Our last meeting, the agreement was you raise money. Agenda item number 1, confirmation of minutes of the last meeting. Okay. Number 2, matters arising. You have to raise more money. Yeah. Then you say, we did not raise more money. Meeting is over.
See, one of the challenges that comes up, the IMF and the World Bank, they are doing their job. That's why they are there, to fix you, not to help you. And the challenge then is on the Kenyan side. Whom do we send there? If you send incompetent people to negotiate with those people, they'll be fixed all the time. And then you say we have no choice. What do you mean you have no choice? You had a choice of getting competent people who know what's going on, and they should be able to answer back. I think one of the challenges facing us is that when you have incompetent people making policy, they won't even know what they are doing, but they'll do it. Wow. And at the end of it, you are fixed, and you wonder, how did you get there?
Yeah.
Sometimes we argue. It is imperative when you send out a negotiating team on that side that our side should know more about those people than they know about us. Instead, now we have the other way around. Sometimes we even do not know ourselves.
We don't even know who is the party.
No. So you end up there, people who are confused and saying they're negotiating for Kenya. And so they end up signing things, but they themselves are comfortable in their pockets.
Yes.
And after that, they don't care.
Yes.
And that's where the mistake is. So even the Adani thing, of course, Adani is the business of whatever it is. But who is it that fixed Kenya, or tried to fix Kenya in that? It boils down to incompetence.
The people on our side.
Yes. And so because they are that incompetent, they then surrender our sovereignty because they don't care. If it could be done, maybe require that anyone who gets into a high position, whether elected or appointed, goes to maybe the National Defense College for 3 months to be drilled on national interest and what it means. I have sat in a place once, and I had a very high-ranking officer confess he actually did not understand Kenya's national interest. Now, and we were sitting there saying, wait a minute, and what is he doing in that position? He was in a serious policy-making position.
And he was saying...
No, he admitted he didn't understand some of this.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem is. We have somehow thrown merit and competence out of the window. And when you glorify incompetence, which then glorifies corruption. The two, corruption and incompetence, tend to go together. And at the end of it, you lose everything. So the blame should go directly to policymakers in the country.
Prof, where do you think the government lost its grip? Do you think it's this government that lost its grip, or did it inherit a lost grip?
It inherited and then intensified.
It intensified the loss.
I think the previous government appeared to have some sense of proportion, but it had lost it. You know, one of the things that became very clear is that you know, when the Uruto came in, they were flashy and implying they really did not need anybody else.
Yeah, they knew everything.
They knew everything and all those kind of things, and that was a mistake because they did not listen to the wisdom of the wise. Actually, they implied they didn't want to hear anybody. Now, Ruto, who was part of that, once he was there, he intensified and said, I really don't need anybody. And he knows everything. And since he has a shortage of knowledge in terms of world affairs, you know, he's known for saying what, oh, don't bother, history is not important, you don't have to know anything.
Yeah.
Because guess the only one that matters is the one that he makes.
Yes.
He's busy trying to make
his own history.
His own history. And he's prone to flattery, especially from the West. All they have to do is tell him he's a good man, a good boy. Dango a few carrots here.
He's well spoken.
And then he's well spoken.
He has a good understanding.
Because most of the praises he's been receiving is from Biden and Macron. Now, if you're getting praises from these two people, you know there's something wrong somewhere. He's not getting that much praise in Africa. Instead, people are wondering, what is he up to? What's going on? So somewhere along the way, he lost it.
When you say that Uruto and now Ruto don't appear to be keen to listen to the wise, to listen to those that have experience, do you have examples that you can use to demonstrate?
It will be difficult to say this particular one, but from what I've been reading and listening to people say, in fact, even some of his high level, in private, they say the guy does not listen. Even his own people, his own the
people who are supposed to be advising him.
The one who are supposed to be advising him.
Right.
He has a problem listening because he already knows. It seems he has that mentality, if I need your advice, I'll give it to you. And then you repeat it to me. But not to go and tell him. I'm sure even the finance people had told him there's a problem. And he just ignored it. This university mess, you know, when he cobbled up vice chancellors who look like dummies, they're saying it's a good idea. And you say, now, are these vice chancellors or what? They didn't have a choice. Maybe a few tried to say there's something wrong. But they could not say, there's something wrong here. Because they were simply told, do it. And even the commission that was supposedly set up to look into these things, see, they were called in the State House or someplace, and then they were told, this is what I want you to do. Yeah. So go and come up with a report.
That looks like this.
And that's what they did. And then it boomerangs. And you wonder, why is it that these supposedly intelligent people in charge of universities could come up with such a ridiculous thing? How come? It's because they have no choice. They are protecting their small jobs and nothing else. So, had he been listening, this would not have happened. And then even in health, I'm sure somebody will raise a question. but it was ignored. And why was it ignored, I think? Back to what we were talking about, incompetence, compounded by corruption. So, incompetence at the top. It is not possible for policy makers to make the right decisions when they already know everything and they're incompetent. So the guiding principle is incompetence. And then flashing of, these, what they call the hustler grandees, So we saw them running around and in the midst of intense poverty, and people are wondering, now things are bad.
Yep.
How can so-and-so be flashing about 10 chase cars? And
10 is few.
10 is few, yeah. And that's somebody who is kind of
modest.
Modest, and you say, what do they do?
Yeah.
They're just part of the grandees.
Yeah.
And it offended common sense. Yet, those are the ones making policy. So how then can they make the right policy? And so there are those kind of things. Even in the Uhuru time, if you talk to some people, they say, you have a problem advising.
By these guys?
Yes. They'll tell you. There's a problem doing what? Advising, because they already know. And so when things go wrong, we are wondering how come. Let me add this for the fun of it. The reason the mountain turned against Uhuru, because they did, it's not because he recommended Raila. It's because they had already made up their mind that he's not listening to their grievances.
Yeah.
And they started complaining about their grievances in the first term. And he reportedly was not listening. So the anger,
it was building up.
It was building up. And then the second time when he said, I'm introducing somebody, he had said he was a madman. He said, when did he become cured?
Yeah. And yet our issues still persist.
And our issues, and remember there were demolitions at that time, during COVID time.
Yes.
And other people say, what's going on? And say, and he's supposed to be ours. So the anger, was he advised that something was wrong? I think he was. Did he pay attention? Not seemingly. So those are some small examples whereby failure.
This is how a government loses its grip.
Precisely.
That's it, losing touch with the people, basically.
The people.
It's actually at the heart of it, really. When you look at it, even when you think of historically, the revolutions we've had, the monarchies and those in power had lost touch with the people completely. They actually didn't understand the depth and the length of the suffering that people were going through. They did not. They actually couldn't comprehend it.
So they have this problem of being real. And assuming that their small world is the world.
That's the world.
That's the world. They say that, the French Revolution, which is usually something people discuss, Marie Antoinette had an opera theater in the palace.
Imagine.
And the husband was busy pretending to be a scientist. The things are going wrong, and they are just there, confused, totally confused. I think Kenya, we have reached that level, whereby the policy makers are completely out of touch with reality. And when they're out of touch with reality, the disillusionment continues to increase.
Yes.
And the explosion point, we don't know what it's going to be.
Prof, if we look at what happened across the country on Friday.
Yes.
Right? So this is a moment where the leadership of the country, through the National Assembly, decides they want to engage with the people, to tick the box. Yes. Because, let's be honest, they were just doing box ticking exercise so that you don't go to court and say there was no public participation. They'll even tell you, look, the number of forms that were filled by people. These are public
participation.
Yes. They were going there to tick the box.
Yes.
But did they expect the number of people that turned out on Friday, number one? And did they expect the people who turned out on that Friday to express themselves the way they did, number two? Do you think they did that?
Well, the number, they may not have expected as many. And certainly they did not expect the reaction. Even the idea of giving people one day to tick the boxes was an insult to intelligence, and then call it public publicity. It was an afterthought. And I think because Gachagua complained, he said, well, you should involve the people if you're going to give me.
Let it be a people.
And then in the last minute, he said, okay, let's have one day participation. The day after tomorrow, which was actually an insult to intelligence. That's why I'm wondering about the parliament. Because someone in parliament should have said, if you're going to do it, let's do it properly. Give people time to get ready, to go and discuss the matter. And not one day, maybe about 3-4 days. You hear some people talking about the cost. I say, that's not an issue anymore. Participate. Now, in the expectation was that there are not many people who turn up, but the few people who turn up will all be docile, and they'll just say yes, 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 yes.
And the opposite happened.
The opposite happened. And that's why I think they may be looking for a way out, because the reaction of the public was not what was expected. So when they start talking about Kufa Makanga,
Kufa Dereva,
and mwingine anasema hata kufa abiria. You know, that's serious, So it's shown that there is something serious going on. And it is in the interest of the president and his team and others to diffuse this thing.
But do you think they get it? I keep asking this question. With the Gen Z protests and the hurry to label it on somebody and, you know, pin it on someone, say Gachagua and his people were involved, they did ABCD, say, I don't know, foreign forces were involved. You know, it's not that the people of Kenya were unhappy with the finance bill. It is somebody who had organized a small group of people to cause mayhem and try to overthrow the government. That was the reaction then.
Yes.
The reaction then to Friday is just, you know, ignore it, move on. I mean, people are just bringing up their own issues. They don't understand the legislative process and blah, blah, blah. Are they getting what's happening?
The sad part is that they may not be getting. That's the sad part. With the Gen Z uprising, which was very successful initially, before they found a way of sabotaging it, just bring Raila in, and Raila was very unhappy with the Gen Zs because he's known as the champion of demonstrations. His role as the champion of the demonstrations, which usually go nowhere. And suddenly these babies come from nowhere.
And they take over his stuff.
And they succeed. So there was that attempt to undermine the Gen Zs, and it succeeded. And because there was that success in undercutting the Gen Z at that time, maybe they will still have the same mentality. We can figure a way of
dealing with this one.
Dealing with this almost as effectively. The mistake would be that the situation may not be the same. I think some of these people are serious when they say if one goes, they all go. Whichever way, they go together, since it's a package. And the accusations that have been made on the deputy president, so it's argued, can equally be made on the president.
Same
accusation can be made as an individual. And if that's the case, then, and since some MPs have told us that it is the president who told them, then it's Ruto's problem. And does the whole country then buy into it? Because the president has a feud with his deputy. Where the feud came from, we don't know. And it needs to be examined, deciphered, in order to know where it came from and why it is gone. But I think it's simply a diversion from bigger problems. And since Gachagua is a good scapegoat, and he even set himself up, because he also gave him some bad credit. He impeaches himself with bad manners. His utterances that are immature. Right. From the day of the inauguration, if you listen to him and you wonder, is this man mature or what?
Yeah, what is he saying?
What is he saying?
Does he realize he's now the deputy president?
He's the deputy president, and even apart from being deputy president, he's an adult.
Yeah.
And there are some things you do not say or do as an adult. When you fight, when you are a little young and energetic, and somebody is down, you go and help beat them. So once somebody is down, he's down. You don't continue beating up somebody. And this man was beating up on Uhuru when Uhuru is down. And people say, wait a minute, what's going on? That's immaturity. And when people raise the question why he was doing that, and even our guest, the president who had come for the inauguration, see, they said we didn't come here for this kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
Which was an insult to him, and we didn't come here for this.
We didn't come for your drama.
No. So the picture immediately was there is something wrong with this man as a person. Later on, his good friend and key supporter, Governor Kahiga of Nyeri, told us that it is not his fault. He was told to do those things. Is that what Kahiga said? It was Ruto who told him
to do those things that he was
doing.
Those
things, even talking about shareholders and all those things. So the question that came up, if that is true, and he's an adult, doesn't he have a mind of his own to know how to deal with issues?
What's right, what's wrong, how to navigate.
What's wrong. Then how can you be a leader of a people when you're not capable of telling what's right and what's wrong? He struggled to be the leader of the mountain from day one. He started demanding that he should be recognized. And that inability to show maturity is the one that kept him behind. People were saying, wait a minute, you can't tell me. That's when he started talking about, I was speaking the truth. And people say, what truth were you talking about? In front of guests and beating up on somebody who is down. And saying, no, I was talking to, then he started saying, I was talking to Wazungu. And people say, which Wazungu? These were African leaders. So he, in the process, undermined his own stature. He could have been, he had a chance to be a leader. Actually, a very good chance. And the argument he made that he should be accepted because he's number 2 in the country. Fell short of expectation.
From what I hear the professor saying, there's a French saying that describes it, that he was rotten before he was ripe.
Rotten before he was ripe.
Yes. People normally get ripe and then get rotten. But because if I take what you're saying, then arguably I would also say that in the campaign process, because I've heard people say very many negative things about the president and his incapacity to do very many things. But that man can campaign.
Yes.
He is an excellent campaigner. To take a narrative, dynasty, hustler, and let it capture the minds of people, and then throw in another narrative of a wheelbarrow, and people bought into it. But the problem is they bought into the narrative believing that it will produce results. Now here we are.
They didn't understand what he was doing. They thought what he was doing and what he was actually doing were the same thing. Man has 30 years experience mobilizing at national level. Not a local cattle dip level.
Not village.
national level.
No, it's
From 1992, William Ruto has been running a national campaign.
Yes.
30 years.
And he's good.
And he's very good at it. So-
No, he's a very good petty politics operator. That's what he is. But he has no vision.
It's for the winning now.
For now.
Actually, when somebody is as driven as that and can come up with a narrative that is winning, he does have a vision.
Yep.
Whether that vision is intended to actually better the lives of the citizens,
Whether it's for,
It's another matter.
is
for
a
other people's good or
completely
his own
different
good.
discussion.
Totally
Yes.
agreed.
Okay.
Yes.
Prof, it's good having you here. We'll welcome you again. You've enjoyed your session, haven't you?
Very well.
Very good. Asante sana. Professor Macharia Munene is a political historian. He's been our guest this hour.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.